Let's turn our to business. Who better to join us than the one and only Kate Moody? Good evening to you. How are you?
Hi, Mark.
Great to see you. Starting with a look at the state of America's labour market.
Yeah, and what's being called the quit-demic, by some people anyway. An unprecedented 4.5 million American workers quit their jobs in November of last year. That's new statistics coming out today. It is about 3% of the American workforce in 1 month alone, and it continues a record-breaking trend, which has been coined by some as the Great Resignation. Now, a high rate of workers leaving their jobs is usually seen as a sign of confidence in the economy and their ability to negotiate better wages. Some people, however, have cited uncertainty about the pandemic and family care problems as reasons for leaving their jobs. All that has contributed to the imbalance in the number of unemployed people who say they still want to work and employers' ability to recruit enough staff. The U.S. Labor Department reported 10.6 million job openings in November. That's slightly lower than the previous month, but still historically very high. Data show there are roughly 2 workers for every 3 job openings at the moment in the United States.
2 workers for every 3 job openings. It's something to consider, isn't it? Now then, staying in the US, a non-American car maker has become the country's bestseller for the first time in nearly a century. Kate.
Toyota, Mark, sold more cars in the United States than General Motors in 2021. It is the first time since 1931 that GM has not claimed that top spot at the end of the year. GM said on Tuesday it had sold 2.2 million vehicles in the U.S. last year. That's a 13% drop from 2020. Japan's Toyota, meanwhile, sold 2.3 million. Now, key to this shift is the global shortage of semiconductors. Manufacturers in all sorts of industries around the world have had to slow their production because they can't get their hands on enough microchips, about 2/3 of which are currently produced in Asia. Toyota had essentially stockpiled chips, which allowed it to better navigate the supply chain disruptions. Industry analysts do say that GM is likely to recapture its dominant position in the U.S. market in the coming year, Mark.
And finally, today marks the end of an era in the mobile phone industry. Tell us why.
Well, they were a trailblazer back at the turn of the century in that shift towards smartphones. BlackBerry's officially now go out of service today as the company withdraws support for its own internal operating system. Now, you may wonder why that didn't happen a long time ago. There are, though, still some BlackBerrys floating around. Any of the phones that still rely on BlackBerry software and which didn't shift to Android operating systems will gradually now stop working. As recently as 2009, BlackBerry held about 20% of the global mobile phone market, but it quickly lost ground to Apple and Samsung with their touchscreens and apps, and it remained a device for business use, not for pleasure. By 2016, it had stopped making its own handsets, licensing its brand out to other manufacturers. Now, BlackBerry does still exist. It's a company that now focuses on cybersecurity software, but the days of what were once known as the Crackberry mark are officially over.
Indeed. I remember when I first got one, I just couldn't put it down. But, you know, things move on, don't they? As indeed does the news agenda. Kate, thank you very much indeed. Kate with all the business. For more news, stay with us. You're watching, of course, France 24. Let's turn our to business. Who better to join us than the one and only Kate Moody? Good evening to you. How are you?
Hi, Mark.
Great to see you. Starting with a look at the state of America's labour market.
Yeah, and what's being called the quit-demic, by some people anyway. An unprecedented 4.5